Hello, I'm Steve. A little about myself. I'm a retired law enforcement officer with 20 years of service. I began my career in the jail, worked the road, and became an investigator. During my career, my training consisted of everything from SWAT to becoming a state certified crime scene technician. I've investigated crimes from thefts to homicides. After retiring and becoming aware of true crime and web sleuths, I started my channel for web sleuths to better understand the perspectives of law enforcement. Not only do we cover true crime, I go out into the field and assist families who have lost loved ones to homicide and their cases are considered cold. Join me as we look and bring attention to these critical cases. Hello, everyone. Glad you're able to join us tonight. If this is your first time here, welcome. As you're in chat, absolutely always be respectful of families, the mods, and of each other. And we'll have a short slide presentation, and after which we'll discuss just about anything you want to talk about, not just the topics that will be in our slides, but it'll be interesting enough because we're going to be looking at some of the, especially the jury on the Murdaugh trial that just ended with the conviction of, Alec Murdaugh for the homicides of his son and his wife, which is a tragedy. But when we look at it and the power and this good old boy system, I'm from the South. Everyone's heard of the good old boy dynasties and the systems that are, placed in a lot of different counties. And each of us, wherever you live, you've seen these dynasties, you've seen these untouchable families. And a lot of times you'll see in TV series, shows, and some of them, as back in the 70s and 80s, when I remember, they had, these shows about these powerful families. And we've got to see one on trial for the last few weeks. And we had to think about that and see and look at what can be changed or if anything could ever be changed and what brought about the circumstances. And this jury that stood up and had, they're from that community. This family still exists. This dynasty still exists in that county. And that jury has to live there with them from here on out. Will be interesting to see because the trials of this first with Alex is over, but there will be appeals, and we still have that civil case. It's supposed to go in August, so there's still going to be a lot of things. Plus, we have these other death investigations that's associated with this family, and who all will be involved with those. I mean, it's just a continuous storyline. Of course, they have that Netflix series out on it, but I'm interested in seeing, there will be a movie made about it. It's impossible that it won't. And of course, how will they stay along the storyline? And will they have to embellish it? I don't think they'll have to embellish it at all because it's such a fascinating case and so tragic. But anyway, before we get started, let's see who all is in chat here and say hello for a minute or two here. Hey, Dave, good to see you. And get this here Google machine going. Panthers Rules, Grace, Single Mom, Miranda, WO22, good to see you. Jocelyn, Yvette, Madison, and Jill, good to see you. JJ from Michigan. I have a brother in Michigan. He moved from Georgia to Michigan. Man, that's cold up there. I don't know. I just don't. Lane Seawright. He says that they say family fortunes only last 3 generations. That's interesting. I don't know if that's, I've never heard that before. With the Murdaugh, you know, the courthouse, and I found out a lot of surprising things in the news this past week. Even when the judge first started addressing the jury and addressing, talking about having to remove this family's uh, one of the founding members of that law firm from the courthouse walls because it was part of the Murdaugh family, and found that absolutely fascinating. But not as fascinating as when I saw that one of the jurors' brothers was one of the responding officers. Absolutely, uh, uh, I couldn't believe it, and I didn't know that during the trial. I found out later, and um, but they went through the proper procedures. He wasn't struck as a juror. The defense had a chance to voir dire, prosecution, and the judge, and they accepted him. Absolutely amazing, and only could that happen uh, in a uh, you know, if that was in the movies, that wouldn't have happened. And so in real life, it's absolutely amazing that such a situation occurred. And I found it uh, so interesting. And I would have never, you couldn't have told me that would occur. I would have bet the farm against that. All right. Yes, sir. Grace is here. JJ, thank you for the thumbs up. And Panther's Rule says this generation of Murdaugh still felt invincible. Not anymore though. I don't know. As far as Alex, absolutely. The rest of the family that's still there, I don't know how influential and prominent they are. Um, but and I don't know how much wealth is still in that family. And but I'm sure we're going to find out uh, for the fact that all of the finances, the properties, they're still on the table uh, because from the articles I read today that with the August 14th, they're still seeking that wrongful death lawsuit. And how would that work out in the courts? It's going to be extremely interesting to see. Absolutely. The jury was very brave, and I believe this is a start of much more to come. Absolutely. Um, and it, I was impressed with them. I've saw the interviews that was on the major networks, and extremely bright. I saw the two ladies and the young man was talking about the case, and as he articulated, and they articulated, every one of them, they were very firm in their beliefs and stood by their decision. And you have to admire those people because, like I said, they live in that community. They've got to go back to that community, and they have to live with this decision they made for the rest of their lives. Their families that also will, and how will they be judged and accepted? And um, a question would be asked of them that if it had have gone to the been part of the death penalty, um, would they have reached it the same way? Which, of course, it's not so much that it's the jury always that has to make that decision. There is an involvement of the judge and the court system, but it would have been interesting if that had been on the table. And I understand that there's a lot of people that's saying that, well, if the death penalty had been placed on the table, it would have allowed the voir dire by the defense and additional questions. In Georgia, that happens all the time. I mean, that um, it's not just left down to a questionnaire, um, but you're impaneled. You're sitting there with your other panel members as you're going through the voir dire process, and it's a fascinating process. I've been on jury duty more, uh, probably about as much as any law enforcement officer could be. Although I've never been selected, I still have to go through that process, and it's a very interesting process. And they ask you, of course, for those of you that's never been on jury duty, they ask you all different types. Do you know law enforcement? Have you ever been a victim of a crime? And which of course, being a law enforcement officer, I don't know if there's any section, and this will surprise you, that most people don't realize law enforcement officers in a if you're very active and you're out there on the front lines and you're going to get bad guys, you're the victim of a crime a lot of times. I've been shot at. I've had people try to stab me. I've been beat on. I've been kicked. I've been bitten. Um, and I've had my property, you know, destroyed from patrol cars to being shot at and everything else. And so you're a victim more than most people ever realize. And so when they ask you, have you ever been a victim of a violent assault? A lot of officers have. And part of the questioning will be that. But most people don't realize that law enforcement are really that, uh, it's part of the job. I'm not saying that feel sorry for me. No, I took that job. I was paid to do that. I stood and answered the call whenever I had to do my job, and um, and I wouldn't change a thing about that. But it is very interesting that most people don't realize how often law enforcement are victimized, and sometimes officers pay with the ultimate sacrifice, and but it's just absolutely just part of it, and you see it. It's just an interesting fact that most people would had never even considered. Mrs. Steve has. Um, uh, never. Good to see you, Boston Christian. Glad you're here, Dwayne. Prospecting. Uh, that's all right. I know you hadn't forgotten me. Brooklyn, good to see you. Ella Ray, I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're new to the channel. Jump right in and ask anything you need to ask, and enjoy your time here. Um, Single Mama 4, thank you. Good to see you. Right. I couldn't believe. Yeah, I'm with you. I couldn't believe they didn't strike him either. But he is extremely articulate, well mannered, bright young individual. Uh, in my opinion, Ann says that there's a backstory to be dug up on the juror who was bumped the night before closing. Defense sure seemed deflated after that juror was gone. And I had heard that. I'd heard that that was one of the ones that was being, you know, more partial towards the defense. And would that have been the hung juror? Who knows? Because the 12 uh, that did uh, get into the final deliberations, they didn't waste any time. 3 hours, absolutely unreal. Yeah, Dave, all that testimony and all that time between lawyers, it only took the jury 3 hours. I thought it was going to be a hung jury. I I really did. I didn't think that the state had performed as well as they did, um, and for the fact that I got bored with the financials, and and but the jurors, they, took them 3 hours, and they said they went, and I was um, very interested that some of the jurors, at least one, maybe two of them, when they visited the crime scene, they saw the where Paul, of course, fell victim, and at least one of them came to the same conclusion that I had come to about uh, that Alex more than likely had fallen to the ground during the those shots. And Pigeon Mac, good to see you. Um, Brooklyn says, as Alex was being walked out of the courthouse and handcuffed, someone yelled out, "Buster's next." What kind of evidence would it take to reopen the Smith case? I'm sure it's being looked at, and it's never. And that's the thing, is that if it's out there, and um, they they know that he is a victim of some type of homicide, that the case is unsolved. It's open. It's there. Now they may be looking more closely and at other um, avenues that they have now that they didn't have before, um, and that may go to court on that. Um, or they may have a grand jury and be bringing in witnesses and getting information on that, but it'll still be open. They won't have to reopen anything. I didn't know that Randy Alex's brother and lawyer former is now taking some of his brother's cases at the firm. That surprised me. That surprised me. I hadn't heard that. Randy looks like he doesn't believe that Alex is innocent and hasn't spoken to him for over a year, according to the New York Times. Um, One of the things I found interesting was that when after the jury had found Alex um, guilty, that Alex is reported that he turned around and looked at Buster and said, "I'm sorry." Um, that can be taken in a lot of different ways, if and but it is something that um, has absolutely destroyed so many lives that one attorney and these some of these families, uh, you know, they may not have realized how bad they have been scammed. They do now, and the impact that absolutely has destroyed them, and also just affected all these families that's having to go out there that's worked with Alex in that law firm that they're having to and they have put up whatever monies they had and to make it right because all that would be going to court. And will some of those cases still go to courts? Will there be that there wasn't oversight? I don't know. There's so many different things that can come out of this in so many different new cases. I, like I said, you couldn't write this book. It'd be impossible. Let's see here. JJ says, how much do they get paid? I don't know. But I know that all the attorneys, and then they split the money at the end of the year. And you wouldn't think from a small community uh, that it would, but I see that quite often here as during my career. There's a lot of times that people are being represented by an attorney and they don't have the money, but they put up their homes, they put up their property, and a lot of lawyers acquire a great deal of property through their representation for the fact that they will take those deeds as collateral, and if they don't get the fees, they take their collateral, and that's part of it. I've seen that with several um, attorneys in our jurisdiction, and you know whatever how they can get paid for the services and whatever agreement they reach, every party has their ability to negotiate how to get good representation, and or you throw yourself at the mercy of the court and get one attorney through uh, the court system assigned to pro. Let's see here. But I don't know how much attorneys make now. I've never had to have an attorney. Never got that far. My ex-wife was like that. My goodness. Uh-oh. What's going on here? Sometimes chat just does weird things. Hello, Copper Horse. Good to see you. Um, you like the new background? Yes. Mrs. Steve, she came up with that, and she decided that we needed to uh, get it as interesting and law enforcement as you could get. And I think we did a pretty good job at it. Mrs. Steve loves the blue light. That's her main thing. Yeah, I felt that Senator Poot's demeanor during the trial was a disgusting display of good old boy defending good old boy. He needs to retire, update his thinking, and he is a old time attorney. He's extremely he's probably seen just about everything you can see in a court system, and also he's probably defended just about every type of client that you can. And um, what does that mean? I mean, he'll be doing what he does for up till the point. I've seen some of these attorneys that could just barely walk into a courthouse and still have some great minds and practice long for many years further than what you would think they needed to. But some of those attorneys, they love it. They love that battle. And, and I respect attorneys because you have to, because without the attorneys defending these people, because there are certain times that people are arrested that are innocent, and you have to sit back. And if they can prove that they are innocent, then absolutely the court system has served its purpose. Um, because sometimes circumstantial evidence puts people in the path of that uh, against all logic, that sometimes people are charged and either due to some type of misidentification, especially back in the day when eyewitness accounts and so much uh, uh, weight was put upon an eyewitness that there was a lot of people that served a lot of time just on an eyewitness. And so I respect the court system. And by no means did I win every case. I lost cases um, just as much as any other officer, I guess. Ann says, I don't think the defense had an unlimited number of strikes, so they may have used them up by the time the young man had been on all the interviews came up. I think that's how come they went to judges' chambers, for the fact that they were looking at that. And uh, when the young man was talking and explaining that could he still come to a fair and impartial decision, he gave the right answer, or the judge would have struck him with cause, and that didn't occur. Um, Ford said, jurors get paid $7 with $5 for food, 12 a day total in Kentucky. I think here in Georgia it's like 20 or $25 a day. I think is what it is here. But anyway, let's look at a couple of things that about the jury. That after deliberating for 3 hours, the jury of 7 men and 5 women convicted Murdaugh of 2 counts of homicide and the fatal shootings. And like I said, 3 hours. Chris with Mob Crew, we were discussing prior to the deliberation, and he said that he was told there's a rule of thumb that for every week of trial, you can look for 1 day of deliberation. And so he said that and we were discussing, well, during the deliberations, what type of, what do we want to discuss? And so we were thinking about that. And a few hours later, I called him and I said, well, you going live? And at that point, Chris didn't know that they'd already reached um, a, a decision, and that he was found guilty. And so we talked for about 10 minutes. And I said, I can't believe you're not going to go live. And he said, what are you talking about? I said, well, they found him guilty. He said, no way. And and I said, sure. And he said, that's impossible. And he couldn't believe that it only took 3 hours. And because he was totally unprepared for that. And Chris, he's absolutely a brilliant mind. I love his shows, but he is absolutely hilarious on the phone. Um, I laugh every time I talk with him on the phone. He's absolutely hilarious. But the prosecutor in his closing, one of the strong things that he said, and um, and I think it played a part in the jury's deliberation, is that when he stated that this defendant, on the other hand, has fooled everyone, everyone who thought they were close to him, everyone who thought they knew who he is, he has fooled them all. Um, and he fooled Maggie and Paul, and they paid for it with their lives. Don't let him fool you too, which is a very powerful statement. And the jury went in there, and in 3 hours, um, and I saw where there was one of the jurors that he uh, he went into the jury room, and he made the statement. I think it was this one, um, that the evidence was clear, and I took out the last names of all uh, of the jurors. Not so much for the prosecutors or anyone else, but for the jurors. Although it's easy to find and to find it out there, but I just didn't want be doing it myself. That the evidence was clear. Um, I'm glad it was clear for him, but now uh, I only saw part of the testimony. I still have my other duties that I still do, working the cold cases, creating content, and doing my other jobs and stuff, and trying to keep Mrs. Steve as happy as I can. So I have my hands full all the time. So I wasn't able to sit down and watch the trial and the testimony from the first hours until the closing hours of the courthouse, and the jurors were, and so it was very clear to them. But me catching bits and pieces of it, it wasn't clear to me, um, and therefore that's why I always thought that there might be a little bit harder. But then, like I said, I watched that one interview where James, Gwen, and Amy were speaking with the to the news, and all of them, like I said, they were very straightforward, um, didn't doubt themselves, and which I always worry about jurors going and talking about a case after they've reached a verdict, because you think that sometimes they mess up, and we've seen where certain people have said things that have brought the court system and the juries uh, um, under, you know, the microscope of what exactly went on and why did they manipulate the system to get on that jury to do what happened. And those are things that you always have to guard against. That some people go in, that when they're on jury duty, they have an agenda. They want to be on that jury, and they will do everything they can, misrepresent, lie, whatever, to get on that jury to serve whatever their agenda is. And sadly, and it doesn't appear on this case any of that occurred. Then we find out that, and this is what I was talking about, that after this verdict, some of the families that have the wrongful death lawsuit that's set for August 14th with Mallory Beach, who was a victim in the boat crash, who lost her life. That uh, this uh, mess of a uh, court and the proceedings are going to be going on for many months uh, in South Carolina involving this family. And what else will come to light, because there'll be more coming to light, not just for the Smith case where that young man lost his life, but also with this. And then, of course, we have the housekeeper. I mean, there's so much death that surrounds this family, and I think someone said they had done some research and found other past with other members of the families, other deaths and things. Just terrible. Let's see here, and then of course he's found guilty on that. Let's go over here to chat and see what's going on. Get called up here. JDR, good to see you. Panther says that kennel video and car data was sold. Yes, I feel like Shelley Smith's testimony had a huge, absolutely. Every bit of it played a huge part in it. Oop, jump there for me. I'm pretty sure Mrs. Steve isn't really happy about you being shot at, stopped, etc. You are correct, and uh, she gets feisty about some of that stuff. But like I said, she stood by me and behind me all my life. So yes, Miranda Lee, the Smith case uh, has never been closed, still open. Absolutely. Let's see here. Let's see here. Oh, I'm trying to get there's Boston Christian. Good to see you. Triple S. My theory is that he lied to Randy in his flurry of phone calls after the homicides and told his brother he was being framed and to send someone over to clean up the crime scene. Yeah, I'm still interested in going over there. If I get a chance, I will go over there, and just to see some things I'm interested in looking at. Let's see here. Just trying to catch up with chat. Chat's flying along here. So you like the old touchstone phone? Oh my goodness. Yeah, I'm Ella Rose. I'm glad you're here with the Morning Watch crew, and we're a bunch of people that are driven by coffee. Um, Dwayne's a prospect. Just my opinion, but taking someone's property as a way of payment seems like legalized theft. But some, like I said, some people are land poor and they don't have the cash or anything, and they negotiate that whatever the payments are, and then if they don't make the payments to for that collateral, it's just almost like a loan. And but it happens, and I think actually Alex testified that that was part of the way that he obtained the um, that property, the 1,700 acres, the Moselle property, was through that process. Judge Newman was awesome. He's 70. I didn't know he was 72 years old. Uh, Absolutely brilliant man. Yeah, let's see here. Just going through chat here right quick. JJ said it should be $25 per hour. Absolutely. Single mom of four. Oh, me. Let's get in here. And you may be absolutely right, Ty's Kitchen, that you don't think Maggie was fooled. She didn't listen to her instincts. Um, you you're probably right on that, and sadly that she didn't. And because there's a lot of times that you see that in some of the domestic issues, and you see it in past crimes that people just you know didn't listen to that inner voice. I thought that the dismissed juror and dozens of eggs were funny. I did too. Absolutely. When I didn't see it live, but they were talking about it, and I got to see the retake. Oh, Grace is going to sleep. I'm sorry. Sleep well. She's probably been asleep about 10 minutes now. I'm probably so far behind. Oh. Single mom says 5 deaths in 6 years. Whoa. How can the state afford to try 99 more Murdaugh cases? I don't know if they will or if they'll just plea out some of them to make sure that if there is any type of, of, of as they go through the appeal process, um, to make sure that he isn't bonded out. Um, but I don't know if they're going to follow through with all of them or not. Yeah, I think Tinsley would do his best to make justice. Absolutely. Um, I read in one of the articles that him and Alex had there was some type of confrontation, and that Alex tried to bully him, which in the mindset that Tinsley looks back at, that how close could he have been coming as being the focus of a possible victim, and did has he sat back and thought about it since he's found out what happened to Alex, and he's sitting there thinking about, hey man, how close did he come? And you have to think about that. And when you're dealing with these people that are sitting there awaiting um, the verdict, and they're sitting there on trial for their life, that they know exactly what went on at the crime scene. They understand that, and they know, and they've watched the trial, and you'll see them. That sometimes they try to escape from the courthouse, and sometimes they are successful. And you know, even in Atlanta, we had where inmate escaped um, from the transporting officers and wound up committing several homicides in the courthouse, and then even after his escape, continued that uh, his flight. JJ's going to bed. All right. Steve, he wins an appeal. Does that mean he gets another trial? If they're going to keep him under that, yes, there will be another trial. Um, yeah, never, never. There's so much in his play on words. I'm still rewatching his testimony and interviews. Yeah, he has his own spin and he calls on his emotional, but he's an attorney. They do that. They're trained to do that. Did someone get blocked? If they did, like I said, I uh, unblock whoever. I don't know how all that stuff works sometimes. Mrs. Steve takes care of most of that. Hope you got my donation. Mrs., if you donated, if it's on here, I it may have happened tonight, and I don't know. I hadn't seen it yet. Um, but anyone let me know, and I'll do the blue light. Or if you donated on the foundation page, you should have gotten a email. Um, and if you'll send me an email, steve at truecrimeweb.com, I'll check it either way and let you know. and I appreciate your support. And you're absolutely correct. In every lie, there is some truth. Every there has to, and that is absolutely. Oh man, I've had to give up coffee. Blood pressure issues. Oh man. Oh, I, I hate that for you because I love coffee. I love coffee. As Creighton Waters stated, the truth isn't in Murdaugh. Ah, ah. Pigeon Mac's been hating YouTube lately, and Lobo stars aligned for Rogan and Paul's FaceTime call. And Rogan is someone else that I have to count that's pretty lucky. Um, there's a lot of possibilities that was there that he may have dodged. Yes, Mr. Steve is a king. Oh no, I appreciate that thought though. Thank you. Um, Grumpy Cat. Hi, Steve. Did you know the previous owner of Moselle was Barrett uh, Beware, a suspected drug smuggler, and Alex was his power of attorney? No, I did not. I know that he mentioned during his testimony that it was some type of representation is how he acquired that case or that property. I just didn't know the name that went with it. Interesting. Drug smuggler, no less. I'm telling you, it, when you think it's gotten about as deep as you can into criminal activity, something like that pops out. Mm-mm-mm. Lobo, you these homicides and financial crimes, I'm sure, is only scratching the surface. It's beginning to appear that way. Lisa says she's watching on 1.5 speed. Yeah, I'll. You sent through PayPal. Ella Ray said that she sent a donation through PayPal. You should at some point, if it's just been done recently, Mrs. Steve will catch up, and she always sends out thank yous, and I appreciate your support. Yeah, we're about to go to Texas, and we supposed to be next week, but it's been put back a couple 3 weeks. I've got to um, um, tried to uh, our geophysicist has given me like 3 or 4 different time frames in early April. So I've got to contact the owners out in Texas and get that permission of when they'll be available. Mr. Steve, when do you think Alex told Tricky Dick he lied about being at the kennels? They had that video audio well before the trial as part of discovery. I'm sure just as soon as that was released in discovery, um, and um, Alex may have even told the attorneys prior to. I doubt it though. I'm pretty sure he kept uh, that he was there, hoping that no one would ever be able to put him there. And little did he know that one of his victims, of course, his son, placed him there, and which at that point, mm, that without that video, we wouldn't be here. I absolutely believe that. I would not survive without coffee, and neither would my family. That's the truth. That's me. Do you think Alex spared Buster because Brooklyn was in law school and she can carry the legacy if they marry and have a family? Um, I don't know. Was Buster his favorite child or had become? I don't know. Um, I have no idea. Um, some there. It's always been said that every parent has a favorite child. They'll deny it, um, um, but the rest of the kids know. You know, uh, I was a favorite child of my father's, but my mother's favorite child is my oldest brother, and um, which my mother and father are both deceased, but and everyone in the family knew who the favorite child was for each of them, and then I had another brother and sister that weren't. They were just siblings, and we give them the devil about that. Yeah, kind of catch up again. Yes, funny how cell phone videos are solving all these crimes lately. And it's not just the videos, it's the data from them. And then, of course, you got your data on the same principle of these vehicles and the data that's generated from the satellites and radios and anything that can hook up and track you. Um, that it's coming to pass that the technology is absolutely one of the most critical things uh, that will have such an impact on crime because we have, of course, Murdaugh, and then what's happening out in Utah is same uh, with rounds. Uh, uh, Panthers. I was never anyone's favorite. I was everyone's headache, unfortunately. Um, uh, yeah, I was that too. I was favorite, but I was still, once you're a favorite, you always push buttons on the others because you can get by with it. Pigeon Max is when I think when I get a new phone, I may get YouTube back to normal. Hopefully, I hope you do. Yeah, in the Rounds case, like I just said, yeah, um, eh, they were able to recover that data. And what other cases, and how often is that the case? And it's going to become more and more common as we move on with the technologies, which is a good thing. It's absolutely a great thing because um, in these two cases alone, and there's far more cases, but in these two cases, we've got two people that were responsible for homicides um, um, that without these phones and without that data, justice wouldn't have been. Mary, good to see you. Oh, I hadn't seen that, Ella. If the judge hadn't caught the juror, it would have been a hung jury. She admitted she didn't think he was guilty. Oh, I hadn't seen that. That's interesting. Thank you. Ford said that I listened to the TikTok. I really can't tell. I couldn't find him guilty. Maybe if I actually knew him, I could tell. Yeah, and that was the part of it that they had all these witnesses that were potential that they could have called family, friends, but you know, you had everyone, especially Rogan, who was so powerful in his testimony, saying that yes, that from the get go he had told and that yes, I heard um, Alex's voice in the background, and of course, um, only one other person knew if that was true or not, and that being Alex, and he played it off as best he could until there's no denying it once they were able to unlock that phone. Sean, hey, Mr. Steve, good to see you tonight. Good to see you, Sean. Glad you were able to make it. Uh-oh. Let me get back up here. It said that she told reporters, Ella. Oh, that's interesting. Let's see here. How could anyone think he's not guilty? Oh my word! And you know, everybody, and there's going to be a lot of people, you know, that will believe him, that know him, or for whatever reason they they choose that route, and which I enjoyed discussing it with them that to play and you know to debate it out, and we need both sides, and but yes. You're always going to have when after a trial, you're going to have the different sides of the story. You're going to have the ones that absolutely there's no way in the world you'll ever convince them that he's innocent. And you'll have the ones so far on the other side that you'll never able convince them guilty. And then it's the ones in between that uh, that gives you hope and of which way that it will tilt because and those are the ones I was worried about for the hung jury because I knew that you were going to have um, the that one of the three is what I figured would be the hung jury. I just didn't know that um, it would be the one with the eggs because if what Ella just reported is true, that if she hadn't have been taken off of the jury, then we would have a hung jury. Um, and then where would we be? We'd be seeing what decisions the state would have to make to find justice. Would they retry it? Who knows? Miranda Lee says, "Did I see you? Did you see my question about summer wells? No, I didn't. I'm sorry. Um, put it up there again, and maybe I can catch it this time. I've scanned through these things trying to catch up." Jameen Gender, hi from San Diego. Love watching. Thank you. I'm glad you're here. Oh, Pigeon Mac, I am still so baffled that he insisted on getting on the stand. He really thought he was that believable. And that was something that the jurors brought out and mentioned absolutely that they wouldn't have took the stand. And and I was surprised. I would have bet, like I said, I would have bet the farm. He wasn't going to take the stand. But now I was also firmly that he was going to have to explain. But I thought they would be able to explain him being on the voice on that video by possibly using a doctor or some type of psychiatrist that he had some type of memory lapse. And I was just trying to figure out what angle because I knew if he took the stand, it probably wasn't going to work out for him. But I knew that was a possibility, but I was still surprised. Um, and as I said in some of my previous shows, that he would have to explain that in some way. I just never thought that he had backed himself into a corner and thought that he would be able to take the stand and um, and try to explain it away. And by going on the stand and saying that you lied is never a you know, once you admit you're a liar, it's pretty well over for you. uh, I'd have convicted him on the saliva smacking alone. He was you could see under certain stress factors that his ability uh, was did change under certain things when he was talking about, especially um, uh, uh, with Paw and Mags. Josh the Posh. Steve, talked about your channel in my True Crime Book Club. We had a forensic anthropologist speak and many discussions about citizen sleuthing, LE perspectives, and forensics. Well, I appreciate that. And I hope to get out there someday and come by and see you. I look forward to it. Dave says, "Didn't the devil go down to Georgia?" He's passed through Georgia several times. But he's passed through a lot of places. There's a lot of evil out there. Sean Bianchi. Murdaugh gets a 5/8 estate now. That's that's interesting. Uh, Miranda says, "I was wondering about your opinion about Summer Wells and what do you think happened to her?" Yes, I need to look at that, and sadly, it's not going to be that that I think that it's the worst of tragedies that you can imagine, and typically it's done by in those cases, and you know, is it possible for some random individual just to be able to abduct a female from her residence in the middle of the day? Typically, if any type of abductions happen, they're at night, especially with children. Not so much when everybody's up and moving about the properties in the middle of the day. Um, you can be seen so to um, from the point of the abduction to even the point of driving and trying to get away in daylight hours when there's lookouts and there's people and vehicles that can be on camera systems easily identified. Um, it, it just looking at it from a law enforcement perspective, I would have to be looking someone extremely close to Summer uh, for a lot of reasons, not just for the time that it happened, but um, I would be totally focusing on someone that was close to her. That's just my 2 cents. I know I don't know that much about it, but from some of the videos I've seen and some of the articles I read. Yes, I had seen that. According to one of the jurors, the first count was two not guilty and one not sure. Um, and they watched the kennel video, and others convinced them he was guilty. And that's what the deliberations are for, because you may have that. Yes, yeah, it had nothing. Yeah, and you're exactly right. It had nothing to do that just because of what she thought about his guilt or innocence. It was about speaking to people against the instructions of the court, and she knew better and can't do that stuff. Jocelyn, Forrest Gump, stupid is as stupid does. Fifty Mac Davy got caught in South Carolina on his way down. Oh, we love fishing in Georgia. Been going for 30 years. Truman Lake. Truman Lake. I'll have to look that up. I love fishing. One who sees. Good to see you here. You're gonna be the rewatch crew, the morning watch rewatch crew. Okay. Oh, okay. Get caught back up again. Didn't come out. There's a says yeah, he didn't quite make it into Georgia. Came very close though. Yes, that he did. Okay. Uh, right outside Augusta, we call it Clark Hill. Okay. Kind of, yes. Actually, I fished Clark Hill. Steve, do you keep your catches? Some of them, and not all of them. It depends what I'm fishing for, uh, it, be it crappie or catfish or bass. Um, Different members of my family like different fish. I like them all. Ava Hawkshaw, Mr. Steve deserves all the thumbs up. Thank you. That's very nice of you. And Pigeon Mac said that his honor was amazing. Absolutely. Um, Ford says, Steve, I can't wait to pick your brain about the Idaho 4. Actually, I have all my chemicals came in, and I've got to start my. Actually, as you said that, let me get out of this. I'll show you right quick. Um, this is my daughter's van shoes, and so she brought them in because they have that diamond or whatever type of pattern they have on the base on the soles of them, and so we're getting ready to do some testing on it this week. I've got the chemicals. I'm gonna do the exact same process of the shoe identification that occurred um, uh, on as uh, Kohlberger walked past the witness of that shoe print that was found that was latent. I'm gonna process it and for y'all and show you how they collected it and see how far you can. Because I really don't know. I hadn't, I found it extremely interesting that that print had been there for a couple of days before being discovered, and um, and I know it happens, but I'm gonna do some controls and see how far that after uh, the blood transfers cease to be visible, how much farther can you track someone? I like doing that stuff, and um, so that people can become aware of that it's more to uh, processing a crime scene than what you see on TV. Um, and it's not easy. There's a lot of pressure on those guys because whenever you're collecting evidence on these crime scenes, you only get one shot at it. Um, you mess up a lot, and if you mess it up, it's gone forever. Um, and I couldn't believe that that footprint lasted that long if it couldn't be seen. All right. Let's see what else we got going on down through here. Oh, Panther rules. You love to fish, but you have to throw them back. Um, Guy in Washington caught a 64-pound catfish the other day. That would be about 4 feet long. I've caught several of those, and I do a lot of jugging for catfish. I absolutely love jugging. Um, and I've caught two cats on our local lake that's over 4 feet. That would be anywhere from the upper 50s to the 60-pound class. Pitch 'em back. I would die without seafood, me and you both. Jocelyn, uh, uh, more testing by Steve. Yes. Mrs. Steve gets upset with some of my testing. Jennifer, whoop, I was working on my kitchen cabinets again. How you doing tonight? Be careful around those cabinets. How did they find the door print if they couldn't see it? I don't know if they used some special lighting, alternate light source, or if they went in there and they did a presumptive test. There's a lot of presumptive tests that you can do, and luminol is one of them. And did they hit it with luminol and it popped out? Don't know. That and that's one of the good things about uh, that. Once blood dries, it's pretty hardy. Blood stains are hard to get out of a lot of stuff and hard to get off of surfaces. It's when they're moist and and that they can be easily destroyed um, um, or altered. But once they dry, they're pretty hardy. And so I don't know if the presumptive test that they used was luminol, and then they went and to get it. Which I'm gonna do both tests on ours. I still have some luminol, and then I've got the amido black, so I'll do both of them to show the comparison. And I don't know which blood test they used, the presumptive test, to identify it, but we'll see. Be careful standing on things. We don't want you to hurt yourself. Yeah, I knew what you meant. One who sees footprint. Dave said, "Mrs. Steve, hide the washer." Oh, yeah, I can't imagine being, allergic to seafood. My, mother-in-law is, but, actually, I can, if reusing some of the, when we have the fish fries, that if you use the old oil, she'll have a reaction, but if I use, uh, first, run of whatever type of oil I'm frying, she doesn't have a reaction, so I always try to fix her some that way. Yeah. My husband is a commercial fisherman. I'm sick of seafood. Mrs. Steve wouldn't be. Oh, me. Jugging for catfish here in DC, everybody throws the cats back in. Nobody in their right mind would eat a bottom feeder in the Potomac. Although we've got a lot of bottom feeders about above water. Well said. Well said. Uh, One of these, thank you, Steve. I don't know how Door got in there. I don't understand these devices either. Uh, they're not as intuitive as you think because I'll put in what I know I put in, and then I hit send, and I send things that I didn't send. Um, it says, "Do you think Koberger could have stabbed all four in Idaho in 10 minutes or less, based on what you said about stabbing?" He can, but I'm surprised that he was able to do that. And were they all deceased at the time he left? I don't, because some of those injuries and knives are not as fast as some, although it can be. It depends where you hit and what you take, and but once the blood pressure gets to a certain level, of course, um, it's over. But you may not be clinically dead. And so, do I think all four of the victims um, uh, were deceased prior to him leaving? I doubt it. But were they suffering? I doubt it, because once blood pressure gets to a certain level, you're out of it. Um, Sad to even have to even contemplate that, but um, that's part of you know people that are assaulted with knife wounds. It's a terrible thing. And I've been the victim. I survived one myself. Not that they stabbed me, but I missed getting stabbed by about that far. Um, and and I was extremely fortunate. And you know, and I look back on it and I still think about it, and I just shake my head of how I survived that one. Made no sense how I was able to keep from getting stabbed. Sean, I hate that you have to go to bed now. Oh, you do the cooking for Mrs. Steve? That's sweet. Yes, I do. Now, Mrs. Steve makes the greatest desserts in the world, but most of the meals I cook for. Jennifer, I'll have you know I'm a ballet dancer and do acrobats, so I'm flipping backwards and forwards. I blame the slipper for the ladder fall. Oh, me, absolutely. And she follows it up. Apparently, slippers don't work well with ladders. Good safety tip. Oh, me. Oh, that's funny there. That's why I love this time of night, coming out and talking to my the community here. Y'all crack me up. And this is a good point. Yes, very scary because you can't fight back when that condition. Yes, you may be alert or not. It just depends on that blood pressure. And it's uh, absolutely. Uh, I've worked. I'm trying to think how many homicides that I saw that involved a knife. Not as many. Firearms are, pretty dominant in the world of homicides, but I saw at least maybe, I don't know, half dozen or so of just knives. Uh, but there, it's not that much. Fleet, what is it you speak of? Um, they said this Bolaware was some type of a drug offender. And you are correct. It's been said that she was on the phone a couple of minutes before the homicides, and that Snapchat was acted. Yes, the timeline is extremely tight and amazing. Um, uh, and uh, from the data, and uh, I, what will be his defense if he even has one, I don't know. Um, will they be trying to get him off on some type? And I know that they don't have the insanity there, but we'll see what they do with him. Um, Christy says, "I'm new here. If you said anything on this, I'm sorry. Do you think they had enough evidence?" Um, yes, the video. Without the video, no. But the one thing they had to have without that video on Murdaugh, they would not have had enough evidence, and everything hinged on that video. Um, but my biggest concern was for a hung jury that wouldn't give that video the full weight that it deserved, and that I was fearful that he was going to be able to come up with some type of plausible explanation, which he wasn't able to, and the jury didn't believe the explanation he came up with. Um, um, Amazing time was the upstairs times Zena was on her Snapchat. It appears to be the case because the surviving witness said that she thought someone was upstairs playing with a dog. And how long was he up there prior to? And from his phone activities and getting there, it was tight. Like I said, that absolutely amazing. Yes, it doesn't take that long to stab someone. Yes, and you're um, you may be the victim of a homicide and you don't even know it for um, um, a long time. And because, like I said, it doesn't have that shock that can put you down, and or you know, you see it often. I went to a autopsy one time where it took the man. He survived the attack, and I think he was almost a week later before he passed. And when we was in the autopsy, the um, medical examiner opened him up and checked and found where there was another injury that wasn't discovered during the initial surgery. And so he had continued to bleed for almost a week, and before he passed. So a lot of times those knives, you just don't know. Uh, I hope that's not the case for that the sheath is going to be thrown out, the touch DNA. I hope that's not the case. But who knows? We'll see in court. It's possible. All righty, guys. Well, we've been here almost an hour and a half, and I appreciate everybody being here tonight. If you got any more questions, I'll look at them right quick. Uh, and yeah, on the, I think Chris and we were discussing some of the testing that I was going to do on that this week, and I don't know if he wants um, with the rounds case or if he's going to look at BK next week. I don't know what he's got scheduled for me for Monday night, but I'm going to probably try to get something up on the Idaho 4 for Saturday night, and I'll start tomorrow and get everything done. Ms. I'm late, so I may have to rewind to catch up. Yeah. Um, Typically, I try to be here hour and a half, and but also, guys, I want to thank y'all for being here tonight. And if any of you are interested in assisting us on the Amber Crumb case, we're going to be going to Texas in about 3 or 4 weeks. And if you support this channel in any way, we appreciate your support. But if you want to support and and you want the donation to have tax benefits, go to True Crime Web, and we have a 501c3 foundation that allows you to get those tax benefits. So if you wish to support us that way, absolutely appreciate it. And but the views, the thumbs up, the sharing, all of that helps us go out and be able to work these cold cases. And we thank y'all and appreciate y'all for being here tonight. And y'all stay safe out there, and I'll see y'all soon. Night, night.